Hi, I have with me here today is John Wease. And John, what brings you out to the car show today?
Well, I love the cars, and I told my wife we have to come out to Amboy to see the cars. And then a friend of ours said, you know, they have vendors. We recently started a business selling homemade jams and jellies, so we said, let's make it a tax-deductible trip. Bring our jams and jellies. We'll set up for the day. I can get a peek at the cars that I can't afford anyway, so here we are.
Right. Okay, so you are these homemade jams and jellies?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Really?
We just got January, we got the official permit from the county, to cottage food operation permit to make, you're allowed certain products to make in the home kitchen to sell at events, package at home and sell at like our pistachio festival, swap meets, farmers markets, anywhere like that.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay,
I grow the fruit, so I have an organic, very small organic farm that we, not organic certified, but organically raised fruit that we use, all tree ripened fruit to make the best jam you've ever had.
Wow.
Much
That's
better
impressive.
than store-bought factory jam.
Right, right. Okay, so we'll have to put your information up where people can find your jellies and jams.
Sure.
Okay, so I understand that you are a writer for The Pulse.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and what areas do you cover, or do you have a certain theme that you write, or?
I try to cover historical information, interesting events in the area, local events, interesting people with a story. Do a lot of articles about Calico Ghost Town, Daggett, some of the agricultural history of, and some of the quirky characters in Newberry Springs, especially. And I cover generally from Barstow out to Daggett, Yermo, Newberry, and now Amboy.
Okay, cool. So you live in Newberry Springs then?
I do.
Right, and what kind of quirky characters are there in Newberry Springs?
Well, the one I wrote about was the lady that had the world's longest driveway and the world's fastest driveway. And if I could think of her name right now, I'd probably be a lot younger and smarter. But Mrs. Orcutt was her name. She wanted to settle in the desert, and she had all these grandiose plans, and she bought a huge property. This is back in the 50s when there was still a lot of water on the surface along where Route 66 is now. Her driveway connected with Route 66. When they built Interstate 40, it cut right across her driveway. She could no longer get into Route 66.
Oh my goodness.
So she started writing letters, and every politician in California, she finally wrote to Lady Bird Johnson, the First Lady, and she said, my place, she got her place set aside as a wildlife sanctuary first. And then she says, this is a wildlife sanctuary and we can't exist without access to our property. And they built for her a 4.1 mile paved driveway, completely straight, all along the 40 to the next. It was cheaper to build it all the way down to the next entrance rather than put another exit entrance just for her. So
that's pretty.
Fast forward to the 70s, Car and Driver magazine, a guy was coming back from Arizona. He spotted that long stretch of asphalt right along Interstate 40, and he says, you know what, we could test cars there. So they paid a race car driver, I can't remember which one, a famous race car driver. They said, can you build a Trans Am that'll do 200 miles an hour? We have a place we can try it.
Wow.
First time they had the car out there, it blew the doors off. They had to tape everything up. The next time they tried, a highway patrol spotted them and said, no, you can't do this. So they went back. But they're car guys, like these car guys, are crazy. They came back a week later to do it again. And a different highway patrolman was on duty. He stopped, what are you doing? They told him, we're going to go 200 miles an hour on this lady's driveway. He says, well, I tell you what, you give me a ride and I'll park my patrol car across the street so we know it's safe, but I get a ride in your car. And that's how they managed to do that. There was quite a few articles in Road and Track magazine about that. So
oh, really?
Semi-famous. She was the quirkiest character I've written about yet. She was a concert pianist, had a conservatory with shotgun port holes in the walls because she lived all alone, an old widow, and she had her gun port. And she was an ace marksman, so
Oh my
she
goodness.
was ready to protect her home.
All righty. Hey.
But that's just one person.
That is pretty funny. That is quirky.
That's quirky.
Yeah, that is quirky. Well, I understand you're also an author. You have some books that you published. Can you tell us about those?
The first one I published was called The Horseman. It was like a modern day Western about it was a what if story. I raised and trained horses in Newberry Springs and self-taught horse trainer. This character lived in a place that sounded a lot like Newberry Springs and had a life pretty much like I had. Only he got divorced and didn't have a kid to support and bills to pay, and he decides to trade places with an old cowboy that's retiring, goes to Wyoming to a horse ranch or a cattle ranch that's getting ready to close, and organizes a reenactment cattle drive thing for tourists instead of a dude ranch. So, and that's his life story.
Oh, okay.
And then that one actually did through what they call a vanity press publishing, where you pay your money and they'll publish anybody, and their editing was horrible. So I just had it redone, ready for a second edition to come out. But I have somebody working on the cover, and I don't have the cover yet, so that one's not available. I have a second one that just came out, I think the end of September. That was kind of a prequel to that story, because in that story I told the story of this mythical ranch and how it started. And this was a shoot 'em up Western in the 1880s through about World War II, following somebody's life that lived in those days in that area. So that one's out and available on Amazon, and it's called The Carpenter's Son.
Okay.
It's the only Carpenter's Son book on Amazon where the character was not born in a manger.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you one other thing. Okay, so you live in Newberry Springs.
Yes.
And so you've been here in the high desert a while. What can you tell us is interesting or intriguing about Newberry Springs?
Well, our big claim to fame now is the pistachio. It's the pistachio capital of the high desert.
Wow.
When the Shah of Iran was overthrown, all of the pistachios were coming out of Iran, and they found out they grew wild in Iran. So they most of them are growing up in the Central Valley. Newberry Springs has a hot, dry climate. They're pollinated by the wind, so we have a lot of wind. Hot summers, cold winters. We don't have the diseases that they have in the Central Valley that kills the trees. The problem now is we have a diminishing water supply, so the older groves, they can only use so much water a year, and every year they ramp it down more and more. So some of the old farmers are either giving up, or they've cut the water back so bad that the trees can't resist the insects and the diseases, so they're starting to get sick.
Wow.
So we have a permaculture expert just moved to the area, and he's trying to work with trying some new age kind of things where he worked on projects in Africa where they restored desert to like a Garden of Eden kind of thing with 4 inches of rainfall a year. So in Newberry we have 5 or 6 inches a year, so we don't have a lot of groundwater.
Oh,
And
okay.
on a smaller scale, on our farm for our jams and jellies, I grow everything organically. I just added 15 fruit trees, and I'm going to use this guy's permaculture method around all the trees. So there's plants that put nitrogen in the soil, plants that keep the bad bugs away, plants that bring the good bugs in, plants that keep the gophers out of the garden. And they all use the same water that was going around the tree, so there's no extra water use.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm small enough scale that I can do it without being too afraid.
Yeah.
You
Okay, well, as you said, it gets windy in this area, so the
getting really
wind is
fast.
definitely coming up. Okay, all right, well, thanks, John, and we'll put your information out there so people can check out those jams and jellies and also your books.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.